There's an old saying I learned long ago when I was an unwitting but nonetheless conscientious contributor to the military-industrial complex. Power is not given, it is taken. Hi everyone, and welcome to my podcast. My name is Mary Fielder and I'm a holistic health professional. My mission is to help people see how powerful we are and that we can use that power to create a better world. And that's what we're talking about in this podcast. People like me and you who are willing to stand in the light, to hold the light, and to create more of the light we need in this world. Together, we are the great light rising. It's a movement. I didn't create it, I moved into it, just like you did, through my own spiritual awakening. And I am living my calling to teach people that we are warriors of light. We are creating more and more light with every moment. And we don't need to fight. We don't need to walk the streets holding banners. And we don't need to join protests or sign petitions. All we need to do is to create that light within ourselves. And that light will then radiate from us and help others find their light too. Let's talk about power. Many people are afraid of power. And when I use that word, when I encourage them to rise into their power, I see them cringe. That's because there's been an imbalance of power. All of the power has belonged for a very long time to those who would control us rather than those who would lift us up. And so the word power has developed a negative connotation, and people automatically associate power with corruption. But that's not at all the kind of power I want people to know that they have. We're not talking about dominating anyone or controlling anyone or creating any conflict or any friction. We are simply talking about shining our light with confidence and having the strength not to go along with the things we don't want to go along with, and having the courage to do the things we want to do, even if we are the only one in the whole wide world who thinks that's a good idea. We call this standing in your authentic light. We are all different here on earth, even people of the same color skin, the same religion, the same sex. You could have 100 things in common with someone, but you are still different. You're still an individual. And you have a unique life purpose that you don't share with anyone else. We are here to find our own life path and find the beauty in our individuality. Those things that set us apart and make us feel different from everyone else are precisely the beautiful light that we bring into this world that no one else can duplicate. Notice when you're in a group of people who don't know each other, someone will rise to leadership and start to organize the group. No one gives that person authority, they just do it. Many of us are happy to go along because we understand the group needs cohesion and we don't want to be the one that does it. Others feel resentful and refuse to cooperate. This is how group dynamics work. Some people want the power, others don't want the power, but they want the safety of the group. And some people get jealous or resentful when they see someone rising up into their power because perhaps they wanted to do it but didn't have the courage, or they were waiting for someone to appoint them. I'm not saying that you should be the one to take charge or not take charge. I'm not saying that one way of being is better than another. I'm just pointing out how it works. Become an observer of people, especially people in groups, and you will learn a lot. I was working with a client yesterday who has intestinal disease. She's struggling to overcome years of ill health. When I was working in her energy, I discovered that as a child, she got used to saying yes to whatever people asked of her. Her mother, her teacher, her friends, whoever it was, she went along. Inside, she sometimes didn't want to, but she never found the courage to say so. Instead, to keep the peace, she did everything everyone wanted of her. Now she struggles with low solar plexus energy, a lot of discomfort in her digestive system, her intestines and her bowels. Her body puts up the blocks that her mind would not, and so she can't go to the bathroom. Nothing comes out. She's blocked up. Her body is saying, you want to hold everything inside, so I'm holding everything inside. Our bodies reflect our mental state. That's why it's important to move into our power, to be in a positive mental state where we feel confident to do the things we want to do and strong enough to say no to the things we don't want to do. A healthy mental state will reflect a healthy physical state. I want to give a couple more examples of why it's important to learn that you have power and how to use it wisely for the highest good, because I'm not talking about evil power or power over others. I'm talking about power over yourself, over your sovereign being, the power to stand in your authentic light. I was recently on a birding trip in Ecuador. There were 11 of us jostling for position to get the best view of a bird the guide was pointing out. At the end of the first day, in a private conversation with the guide, one of the women burst out crying. She was simply unable to get a view of most of the birds and hung back on the outskirts of the group, peering desperately through her binoculars from a very bad viewing angle, trying to see what we were all looking at. Of course, she couldn't see it. Now, no one is saying that she needed to become confrontational, but she could have been a bit assertive in asking for a place in the front to get her turn. It's actually part of the birding etiquette to allow everyone to get a view. But you see, it was obvious that this woman has a natural fear, a fear of being disliked, a fear of being shunned by the group. You can never rise into your power if you fear what people think of you. I'm not talking about being aggressive or confrontational. Power can be taken up quietly and gracefully with confidence and poise, but you cannot truly take up your power if you're in fear of what people think of you, if you won't stand up for yourself. So after that, we all helped her find her place in the front and made sure she got to see the birds. But you see, when someone else has to accommodate you, you are not in your power. The power was with those of us exercising our authority to help someone else. Needing the group to cater to you is being powerless. For the rest of the trip, someone in the group took the initiative to make sure that person got to see every bird. Her powerlessness put a sort of responsibility on the group, and she could have taken up for herself, and it frankly detracted a little bit from everyone else's experience, because now we had to worry about her. We didn't have to do it. We could have just let her stand on the outskirts and go home crying, but we wanted to do it because as a group, we wanted everyone to have the best experience. So powerlessness, refusing to take up your power, can sometimes be detrimental and puts burdens on other people. I'll give you another example. A client called me on the phone. She was crying and her voice sounded weak and shaking. Her coworker had put a hex on her. Those are her words. She didn't know what to do. She was in a dark, dark place. This happens to me a lot as a Reiki master. People seek me out when they feel surrounded by dark energy, often the result of bad friendships or co-workers who are hating on them. They report that their so-called friends or jealous co-workers are sending demons to haunt them, to infest their energy spaces, and attach to their energy fields. When someone is exerting dark power over you, whether you call that worry, fear, a hex, a voodoo spell, or something else, then you have some options. You can cower in a dark corner and suffer, or you can rise up into the light and cast out the demons or the hooks that others are putting on you. People can only impact your energy field if you allow them to do it. Being in fear and doing nothing is a form of allowing. Once you know this, it's your responsibility. It's not about the other person anymore. It's about you and your ability to command the energy around you. That's what I mean by rising into your power. This is what I said to my client. I'll call her Tanya. When someone is sending dark energy to you and you know it, then it's up to you to cast off the dark energy. How do I do that though? Tanya asked. You can't do it if you're in fear, I said. And I taught her a meditation to come into the light. Close your eyes, I said, and go into your heart space. See a pilot light in your heart, always shining like a little flame. Because we are beings of light, we all carry light. We don't literally carry a flame in our hearts, but we have the ability to shine more brightly when we take conscious control of our energy field. This is physics, and it works. The first Hermetic principle is all is mind. The universe is mental. Consciousness controls energy. This is a fundamental principle of Reiki, and I teach it in my Reiki Level 1 class. The Hermetic law, all is mind, holds true in everything, no matter where you are in the universe. Tanya is very psychic. She sees auras, and she sees black auras around those who are sending her dark energy. So it was easy for her to do this visualization. But anyone can learn to do it. You can learn to do it. Tanya's had a very abusive upbringing, so she has no confidence in herself. My job was to teach her to have confidence in herself, to see that she's a powerful being of light. So I had her close her eyes and see the flame in her heart burning like a little pilot light. Now I said, see that pilot light burst into flame, like a furnace when you turn it on, like a fire in a fireplace when you turn the switch or light it with a flame, and it bursts into life, flames dancing, creating a bright, bright light. So she did that with her eyes closed, and then I told her to open her eyes. Wow, she said, it's so bright. I said, that's how full of light you are. I didn't know, she said. Then she asked me why people were sending her so much darkness. She started crying again. It's everywhere, she said. It's all around me. It seems that so many people are sending me dark energies and creating hexes on me. And so I told her, Tanya, you need to realize how much power you have. You need to understand how much light you can create. The universe is challenging you to rise into your power, into your light. If it sent just a little bit of darkness, how would you know how much light you have inside? It needs to send you a lot of darkness so you can see what a powerful being of light you really are. Where there is light, there can be no darkness. Things of the darkness run away from the light. When you shine your light, truly shine your authentic light, those dark energies will not want to be around you, and they will have to fall away. This is how energy works. Like attracts like. Light attracts light. Darkness is attracted to darkness. When I said this, Tanya stopped in her tracks. Even over the phone, I could tell that she was having an aha moment. It suddenly all makes sense, she said, because she knew deep down inside that she was being called to become a healer. She just didn't quite know what that meant yet. I meet many people who tell me they feel they are supposed to be a healer, but they don't know how to start or what to do. You start by taking your power, by creating light around you, by casting off the darkness. Once you accept your call to adventure, your destiny will find you, and it will become clear to you what path to take. You don't have to worry about it or force it. It just happens. After a long pause, Tanya said, I see now that I have to learn to do this because when I get out of school, the world outside is even darker. No, I said, once you learn how to do this, the darkness won't find you anymore because you will radiate too much light. Once you learn your lesson, the lesson is done, and you move on to the next lesson. Once you learn to do this, your next challenge is teaching someone else to do it. Someone who is where you are now, who doesn't understand that they have the power to overcome the dark spells that other people are putting on them, just like you now. This was another big aha moment for Tanya because she had already told me previously that she wanted to become a healer. This is what being a healer is, I said. It can be about helping people get well physically, giving them Reiki, sound baths, tuning fork therapy, becoming a nutritionist, a life coach, whatever. But it's mostly about teaching them how to use their power and how to shine their light. When you are in a high vibrational state, you don't get sick. Sickness, disease, is low vibration energy. Think about a time when you have been perhaps really, really sick, got a really bad cold or a bad case of the flu or whatever, and think about what was going on in your life at the time. And I think you will be able to identify that you were in a very low emotional state when that really heavy sickness struck you. Because when you're in a low vibrational state, your immune system weakens. It's very low. And when you are in a happy, positive place, when things are going right in your life, you don't get sick. This is something you can see for yourself if you just take time to observe. When you shine your light, dark energies cannot attract to you. So illness, which is low vibration energy, cannot attract to you either. This is what a healer does. You don't have to set up a business, although you may choose to do that. You just have to walk through the world in your power, in your light, and you will be shining that light onto others, casting them in the light so that darkness cannot stick to them. Earlier, I talked about the first Hermetic principle, all is mind. Another principle, the principle of polarity, states that everything is on a spectrum. There is night and there is day. There is black and there is white. There is good power and evil power. Power in itself is not inherently evil, but we've come in our society to associate the word with corruption. This is why so many people are afraid of power. Power in itself is not corrupt. When good people, people of the light, take up their power, this is the way to fight corruption, not to create corruption. Those of the light must stand up to those of the darkness who wield their power over us. So it's not wrong. It's not something to be feared. It is simply something to be understood, that you have power and you can use your power and do it by standing confidently in the light, in your truth. If that one woman who was afraid to come to the front of the group for the bird viewing, if she had done that, it would have released the burden on our guide and on the other members of the group to constantly worry about her, and everyone would have had a better experience. I hope some of you who are reluctant to take up your power, I hope some of you can see things this way, and that it will give you courage. A lot of people I meet are caring for elderly or sick relatives, and they don't have much fun in their lives. And when they think about having fun, it makes them feel guilty, because the people they are caring for cannot join in the fun. But this way of thinking just takes fun out of the world. Putting fun into the world creates an energy of fun that radiates outwards. Perhaps those who can't join in can at least enjoy the stories or enjoy the smiling faces of those who are having fun. Otherwise, everyone is just walking around with long faces and heavy hearts. That creates a very depressing environment. Guilt is almost never a justifiable emotion. It's a purely negative emotion that stops us from feeling confident and happy. Most of us who feel guilty do so about things that are not our fault. Guilt contributes to the imbalance of power because it robs us of our power. So it creates space for those in the corrupt authoritarian regime to exercise more power over us. And trust me, those people do not suffer one bit from feeling guilty about it. While you, who are doing your best, giving your best love to those around you, and conscientiously trying to be a good person, you suffer from guilt. Think about that. It makes no sense. So stop feeling guilty about anything and look for ways to bring more fun into your life, whether or not those around you can join in. Ideally, you'll pull them into your fun, and you'll all have fun together. Currently, in our world, there is an imbalance in power. There is too much power on the dark end of the spectrum, and not enough power on the light end of the spectrum. And so it's easy to see why people think power equals corruption. What we need to do is bring more power to the light end of the spectrum, exercise our personal power to bring peace into our lives and the lives of those around us. That takes courage. And what takes the most courage is letting go of fear, because we're afraid of everything. We're afraid that people won't like us, that people will think we're arrogant or aggressive, that people will think we're not team players, we're not socially responsible, we're not good citizens, and on and on. But the truth is, it doesn't matter one bit what anyone thinks of you. That is where the courage comes in. You need courage to let go of what people think of you. And guess what happens when you do that? People actually start to respect you for it. Stop and think for a moment of a person who you consider to be a good person, who has confidence, who thinks for him or herself, and accepts responsibility for his or her own actions. What do you think of that person? Do you dislike them for having opinions that go against the mainstream, or do you respect them for thinking for themselves? Because for most of us, the second one is true. When someone has the courage to think for themselves and stand up for themselves in a considerate and kind way, not in an aggressive or corrupt way, then people tend to like them and consider them a good leader, a good role model, and someone to be admired. And that can happen to you when you let go of fear and have the courage to rise into your power. There are many times I've gone against the grain, spoken out about injustice, or just gone off and done my own thing because I don't want to do what I was being told to do. And sometimes it's made me feel out of place, unloved, and ostracized. But there is always someone who has the courage to come up to me and tell me, "I'm so glad you did what you did, and it helped all of us when you did that." So when you take up your power, you also help others, the good guys, to take up their own power too. It's inspirational to watch someone being in their power, and it gives other people the courage to do the same thing. They may do something different from you, they'll do their thing, their way, but they still could have been inspired by what you did. Plato was a Greek philosopher and a deep thinker from the 4th century BCE. The Greek philosophers thought a lot about how life works and how it should work. They were advocates for justice and goodness. Many of them were punished by the establishment for their forward thinking that made them want to break out of the power structure, or what was the authoritarian regime of those times. Plato was a disciple of Socrates, and Socrates was poisoned for his outrageous ideas about behaving ethically and morally. He was a seeker of truth, and he had the courage to speak out about the establishment and those who sought power over others. Consequently, he was poisoned to death. That was Socrates. Anyway, Plato, who was his pupil, said that those who seek power do not deserve it, but those who deserve it do not seek it. I'm not suggesting that we seek out power over others, but what we as light workers need to do is wield more power on the positive end of the spectrum. That means exercising power in our own lives. Stop listening to what other people tell us to do and how to behave, and start behaving the way our heart tells us to behave, the way our inner knowing tells us to behave, and doing the things that bring us peace and happiness instead of the things we don't like doing. I know that's not easy, especially if you still need to support a family, pay rent, shop for groceries, and so on. We need money to survive, and we often have to compromise or settle for jobs we don't like in order to keep the money coming in. But things are changing, and there are more and more opportunities opening up for us every day. And I know many people who've managed to make a career change for something more rewarding. Stop believing you're not qualified, you're too old, or whatever your excuse is, and just get out there and apply for jobs doing something that you think you will enjoy. Or start your own part-time business and give it time to build up. If you start it now, 5 years from now, you could be doing only that and making enough money to live on. When we first come into our power, through the spiritual awakening process, we learn about a lot of terrible and disgusting things going on in the world, and we want to avoid them. So we don't look at them. We turn off the TV, we close the magazines, we shut ourselves off and go into hermit mode. There's nothing wrong with this, by the way. It's a normal and necessary part of the journey because we need time to process, time to strengthen our inner selves, time to release our own emotional traumas and heal our own wounds. We avoid toxic people who bring us down, who are difficult to be around. We avoid people who are negative and critical of us, who get into arguments with us, or who refuse to acknowledge or support our awakening journey. It's perfectly normal, and actually, I think it's quite healthy to withdraw in this way. But it is also a long and lonely journey for some of us. We feel isolated, alone, different. We don't seem to fit in anymore. In fact, many of us never fit in to begin with, but now we know why. We seek out like-minded friends, but they're few and far between. Don't be worried if this is going on for you, because I will tell you that as you grow in your spiritual journey, eventually you do become stronger. A good sign that you're evolving is when you are able to look again at the outside world, even as you now see it quite differently from how you saw it before, because now your eyes are open. When you become interested in the world around you again, and when you can re-enter the mainstream, make yourself aware of the news without stepping too deeply into the chaos, but at least acknowledging what is going on around you and talking with people that previously you had to avoid. When you find yourself doing this, it represents a milestone of sorts, that you have grown and you are now holding the light more successfully. Be patient with yourself as you reach this stage. It takes time, but know that this stage is coming for you. There is a war going on between good and evil, a war that in fact we have always been in since time immemorial, since we first arrived as a species on Earth. Most of us have not realized this. A fish in water doesn't know it's in water until it leaves the water and gasps for breath. So we as humans for millennia did not know we were captured in slavery, in the matrix of the programmed mind, until we started to wake up and see the evidence all around us. Once you see it, you can't unsee it, as they say. But this war is not a physical war, it's a mental war of the mind. It's a war of consciousness. That's the first Hermetic principle again. All is mind. In the beginning was the Word, the Logos, the mind. I've talked a lot about that on this channel. What makes the war so difficult is that we have not been taught how to command our consciousness. But the good thing about it is that we don't have to arm up and go to fight a physical fight. We are warriors of the light, not soldiers who need to do physical battle. And we can learn how to command the energy around us, just as I taught Tanya to do. Once you know about the war between good and evil, all you have to do is be on the side of good, to make conscious decisions that are generous and thoughtful to those around you, to show kindness, process anger, disappointment, frustration, process these emotions in a healthy way. It doesn't mean not feeling them. Being in a high vibrational state doesn't mean you're never going to be angry or depressed. It just means you learn how to deal with it more efficiently, more effectively. Do your best to stay healthy or to get healthy, and eat food that is not poisoned with pesticides and artificial ingredients. This will help to raise your vibration. When you raise your personal vibration, you're actually increasing the light on the whole planet. It's not necessary to become an evangelist or try to wake up those around you. That might be your calling. For many of us, it's not our calling. People are going to wake up when their higher self has directed them to do so, not when we want them to. So we need to exercise patience and tolerance when we are among those who have not awakened. We need to be understanding, just as our spirit guides were understanding with us before we awakened, and they did not abandon us. Instead, they stood beside us, patiently waiting and loving us, despite our inability to see or understand that we had the power to break free from the programmed mind. Let's explore a few more concepts related to personal power. Power does not mean being mean. It means saying yes when you mean yes, and saying no when you mean no. If you say yes, but you would rather say no, you are giving away your power. This might be different if you're dealing with a child or a disabled parent, but even then, you should act from a place of willingness, kindness, and generosity, rather than acting reluctantly from a place of coercion or guilt. Power is tied to the solar plexus chakra, but also the throat chakra and the heart chakra. In the context of what we've been talking about, the solar plexus is related to setting healthy boundaries and having the courage to hold those boundaries. The heart chakra is related to your courage. If your heart chakra is strong and well balanced, you will find the courage you need. If it is out of balance, too small, or too large, you can bring it back into balance by doing something that makes you feel very good about yourself. The throat chakra, again in the context of this discussion, is about standing in your authentic light. When these three chakras are in balance, you will find the courage to be in your authentic self and maintain healthy boundaries in your career, your family life, and your personal relationships. We'll talk about just a few ways you can increase your personal power, and then we'll wrap up. Number 1, be your own cheerleader. Don't wait for others to pat you on the back or approve your actions or your words. If you look for approval from others, you will always find people that disagree with you or disapprove of what you are trying to do. That can be demoralizing. If you've decided with conviction, after careful consideration, that something is right for you, just do it and pat your own self on the back. Number 2, quit taking it personally. The acronym for this is QTIP, Q-tip. Stick a Q-tip on your mirror or put one in your pocket or your purse. And if someone says something that offends you, frustrates you, triggers a sensitivity in you, take out your Q-tip and remind yourself to quit taking it personally. People have all kinds of reasons related to their own insecurity, their lack of self-worth, their lack of self-confidence for being mean or hurtful. It's a reflection of them, not of you. Sometimes people have no idea they're being hurtful. There's no need to be confrontational or tell them they hurt your feelings or anything like that. You can just ignore them. What you do, what you think, and how you behave is not up to anyone but you. So just as you should not expect them to pat you on the back, likewise, don't let them get you down. Just brush it off and keep on keeping on. Number 3, quit saying sorry when you haven't done anything wrong. Picture this. You're in a public place and someone bumps into you. Let's say they had their head down looking at their phone and it wasn't your fault. It was their fault. What do most of us do in a situation like this? We apologize, don't we? Well, if it wasn't your fault, don't apologize. Apologizing for something you didn't do is disempowering. Now, on the other hand, if you had your head down in your cell phone and you bumped into someone and it was your fault, then saying sorry is empowering. It's the opposite, because you're taking responsibility for something you did that hurt someone else. Saying sorry in that case is the grown-up thing to do. But I invite you to listen to yourself and the number of times you say sorry when you're out in public for things you haven't done. Just think about this. Number 4, trust your intuition, your gut, over your ego brain. Sometimes something just doesn't feel right, and we can't put our finger on it or articulate it in words, but something feels off. However, because we can't justify it logically or put it into words, we go along with something even though it doesn't feel right. And then something happens and we kick ourselves and we say, I knew I shouldn't have done that. I knew. Well, learning to trust your gut feeling, your intuitive guidance, even though you don't understand it, is well worth the effort. Your gut is never wrong. Only your ego mind makes mistakes. Sooner or later, you will prove that to yourself. If you lack confidence to follow your intuition, follow it in small ways first and build up trust in your own inner guidance. Number 5, set healthy boundaries. In order to do this, you need to know who you are, what makes you tick, what you like, and what you don't like. So think about it. Decide where your boundaries are and what constitutes crossing a boundary. A big clue is whatever makes you uncomfortable. If you're sitting in a public place and a stranger comes and sits too close to you, and that makes you uncomfortable, then there's a boundary there. If you let them sit too close, you're allowing them to cross your boundary. You can ask them to move over, or you can move over, or you can get up and walk away. Don't just put up with it because you're afraid of saying something or hurting their feelings. Honoring your own boundaries is honoring yourself, and that is how you stand in your power. All right, that's enough for now. The world needs more light. We need your light. So tread lightly and walk in the light, my friend. Until next time, I'm Mary Fielder, and we are the Great Light Rising.